Why do people become angry, agitated, abusive, or highly emotional? Why can a small issue suddenly explode into conflict? And why, when we present the agitated person with logic, policies, and explanations, do they often fail to calm down? These are some of the most important questions in de-escalation. However, most of the time when people get highly emotional, it's not usually about the surface issue. It's about the emotion, and it's about how they feel. From a de-escalation perspective, people usually escalate because they feel some kind of threat. Now, that threat is often not physical, it's psychological or emotional. A person may feel disrespected, they may feel ignored, powerless, trapped, embarrassed, judged, dismissed, or completely unheard. And when that happens, their brain begins shifting away from calm and rational thinking towards survival mode. Their threat detection system activates. We've all heard of fight and flight. Well, anger is often the fight response. This is why someone who is emotionally escalated often appears irrational, because in many cases, their emotional brain is temporarily overpowering their logical brain. People calm down when they feel understood, not when they lose an argument, not when they're corrected, not when they're told to calm down, definitely not that. No, when they feel understood. We must work to understand the other person's emotional reality and communicate that understanding back to them. This is why skills like mirroring, labeling emotions, using a calm voice, being genuinely curious, and listening can dramatically reduce escalation, because when someone feels unheard, their emotional intensity often rises. Many angry statements are actually the emotional messages that lay underneath. For example, "no one here cares" may really mean "I feel abandoned, I feel powerless, I feel invisible." Highly emotional people often cannot properly access rational thinking until their emotions are acknowledged, and that's why facts alone often fail during conflict. When someone is emotionally flooded and we argue, we correct, we defend our position, or quote a policy, we usually make things worse. The other person's emotions set accurately recognise. For example, you're incredibly frustrated. This situation has really overwhelmed you. You're exhausted and angry about how this has been handled. This doesn't mean you're agreeing with abuse. You're validating them and reducing what they are perceiving as emotional threat. And always use a downward inflection in your voice. That's what we must always do. We're making a direct statement. We never use an upward inflection. For example, "this situation has really overwhelmed you?" Now, our attempt at validating them by labelling an emotion has become a question. And answering a question, particularly about whether or not we've correctly labelled the emotion, is something they just cannot do in this moment. Now, the first emotion that people often show is not the deepest emotion that they carry. Anger is frequently covering fear, grief, shame, anxiety, helplessness, or loss. Many conflicts escalate not because of what is said, but because of how it is said. Human beings are extremely sensitive to tone, to disrespect, humiliation, and being ordered around, and a loss of dignity. This is why two people can say exactly the same words and one escalates the conflict while the other one calms it down. People would rather be asked than told, because maintaining a sense of autonomy matters deeply to people psychologically. One of the biggest things to understand about de-escalation is that the conflict often isn't really about the bill, the policy, the wait time, the complaint, or the misunderstanding. Those things are often just triggers. The real drivers or reasons are often accumulated stress, grief, fear, trauma, uncertainty, burnout, feeling ignored, or loss of control. Sometimes the emotional bucket was already full long before the interaction began, and our interaction simply became the point where it overflowed. In other words, it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. At its core, de-escalation reduces the emotional threat the other person perceives. It helps people feel heard, helps them feel safer, helps them feel calmer and more respected and more in control. And importantly, de-escalation is not weakness, it's not surrender, and it's not agreeing with the abuse. It's a deliberate communication skill that helps the other person's nervous system, and it helps it settle enough so that they can have a productive conversation, and that's now possible. Because when emotion rises too high, logic often disappears. The better we understand why people escalate emotionally, the better we become at responding professionally, calmly, and effectively. And perhaps one of the most important lessons in all of this is that behind most anger is a human being trying to feel heard, trying to feel safe, trying to feel respected or understood. Now, if you found this video helpful, why don't you subscribe to the channel for more content? Remember, the goal is not to win the conflict, the goal is to move people from conflict to calm.